What if the moment someone becomes afraid to lose you is the moment they finally begin to see you clearly? Not because you begged, not because you chased, but because you stopped shrinking and started standing still. Let me ask you something unsettling. If he disappeared tomorrow, would your life collapse, or would it continue with quiet dignity? Because the truth is this: a man does not fear losing a woman who fears losing him. He fears losing the woman who knows she will survive without him. Stay with me, because when you watch this to the end, you will realize something life-changing. You were never meant to chase love. You were meant to be chosen by those who recognize your value. And once you see this clearly, you will never negotiate your worth again. 1. He becomes more consistent without being asked. There is a quiet moment in every connection when effort stops being announced and starts being revealed, not through grand gestures, not through promises spoken loudly, but through consistency that arrives without explanation. When a man is afraid to lose you, he no longer waits to be reminded of your value. He does not need instructions on how to show up. Something inside him shifts, subtly, silently, and suddenly his presence becomes steady. He checks in without being prompted. He follows through without being chased. He remembers what matters to you without writing it down. This kind of consistency is not forced. It does not come from fear of punishment or fear of argument. It comes from awareness. Awareness that you are not easily replaced. Awareness that you are not endlessly patient. Awareness that silence from you means more than noise ever could. Before this shift, effort was inconsistent. Messages came when convenient. Plans were uncertain. Energy rose and fell depending on his mood. But now something changes. He realizes that love is not maintained by intensity. It is maintained by reliability. So he becomes reliable, not because you demanded it, but because he sensed something deeper, that you were no longer waiting, and that realization awakens something powerful. You see, consistency is the language of respect. Anyone can show passion when emotions are high. Anyone can be attentive when fear is loud, but to be consistent when things are calm, that is discipline, that is intention, that is maturity. When a man becomes afraid to lose you, he understands that chaos no longer keeps you engaged, drama no longer excites you, uncertainty no longer impresses you. So he steadies himself. He shows up on the days that don't feel exciting. He remains present even when life is demanding. He keeps his word because he now understands the weight of it. And what is fascinating is this: the more consistent he becomes, the calmer you feel. And the calmer you feel, the less you chase. This creates a quiet power shift. You are no longer reacting, you are responding. And in that stillness, he feels something unfamiliar. The possibility of losing someone who is no longer dependent on unpredictability to feel alive. So his actions soften, his presence stabilizes, his effort becomes natural, not because you asked for more, but because you stopped asking altogether. And when someone realizes they are no longer being chased, they finally learn how to walk toward you. Because the moment consistency becomes voluntary, something deeper begins to awaken. 2. He starts protecting the connection, not testing it. When consistency takes root, another transformation follows, one that is even more revealing. He stops testing the bond. Before, he may have pushed boundaries, pulled away to see if you would follow, created distance to measure your attachment. Not out of cruelty, but out of insecurity. Testing is what people do when they are unsure of their worth in someone's life. They provoke reactions to feel reassured. They create instability to feel powerful. But when a man becomes afraid to lose you, he no longer seeks proof through tension. He begins to protect the connection instead. He chooses his words more carefully. He becomes aware of how small actions create large consequences. He understands that trust is fragile. And that once cracked, it rarely returns in the same form. So he becomes gentle, not weak, not passive, but considerate. He thinks before speaking, he pauses before reacting. He learns that winning an argument is meaningless if it costs the relationship. This is not submission, this is wisdom. Because he now understands something. Most people learn too late. Love is not proven by how much pain it can endure. It is proven by how much peace it can preserve. He no longer disappears to feel in control. He no longer withholds affection to feel desired. He no longer creates distance to feel powerful. Instead, he closes gaps. He reassures without being asked. He clarifies instead of confusing. He repairs instead of avoiding. Why? Because he senses that you are no longer afraid of walking away, and that awareness changes everything. When a man knows you will leave rather than beg, he becomes careful with what he risks. He understands that silence from you is not a tactic, it is a decision. So he begins to guard the bond the way one guards something rare, not tightly, but respectfully. He learns that trust is built through safety, not intensity, through honesty, not mystery, through consistency, not emotional extremes. And you feel this shift deeply. Your nervous system relaxes. Your heart softens. You stop bracing for disappointment. Because the connection is no longer a battlefield. It is a shared space. And in that space, something sacred forms. Not attachment, not dependency, but mutual care. Yet even this protection reveals something deeper still. Because protection without integrity is empty. And soon, his words must align with something even more powerful. 3. He begins matching his words with his actions. There is a moment when language loses its magic, when promises sound familiar, when explanations feel repetitive, when words no longer soothe, because you have heard them before. When a man is afraid to lose you, he senses that this moment has arrived. And so he stops relying on language alone. He understands that words may attract, but actions are what anchor. So he becomes intentional. He no longer says what sounds good in the moment. He says only what he is prepared to live out. If he says he will call, he calls. If he says he will show up, he arrives. If he says you matter, he proves it through time, presence, and priority. This alignment is not dramatic. It is quiet, steady, undeniable. You don't feel confused anymore. You don't analyze tone or timing. You don't search for meaning between the lines, because the lines are clear. His behavior speaks in complete sentences. And this is where true trust begins. Not because he is perfect, but because he is congruent. Congruence creates safety. Safety creates openness. Openness creates depth. He realizes that empty promises no longer impress you, that charm without follow-through no longer moves you. So he simplifies: less talking, more doing, less explaining, more embodying. And something powerful happens within him as well. When his words and actions align, he begins to respect himself more. Because integrity is not just about how others see you, it is about how you see yourself. And as his self-respect grows, so does his respect for you. He no longer uses the future as bait. He no longer speaks in vague intentions. He lives in present truth, and you feel it. Not in excitement, but in calm, not in obsession, but in trust. This is the kind of love that does not need to convince. It simply exists. And once you experience this level of alignment, you realize something profound. You were never asking for too much. You were only asking the wrong people. Because when someone is truly afraid to lose you, they do not promise change. They become it. And once you see that clearly, you will never settle for echoes again. 4. He listens more and interrupts less. There is a moment when listening stops being polite and starts being intentional. At first, many people listen only to respond. They wait for their turn to speak. They prepare their defense while the other is still talking. But when a man is afraid to lose you, something subtle changes in the way he listens. He no longer hears your words as noise. He hears them as signals. He slows down. He lets silence breathe between sentences. He allows you to finish, not just your words, but your feelings. Interruptions fade away, not because he suddenly learned manners, but because he realized something important, that your voice carries truth he cannot afford to ignore. He begins to notice what you say and what you don't say. He senses shifts in your tone. He picks up on pauses that used to pass unnoticed. And this kind of listening does something powerful. It makes you feel seen, not analyzed, not corrected, not managed, seen. When someone truly listens, they are saying without words, "You matter enough for me to be fully here." And presence, real presence, is rare. So when he listens without interrupting, you stop repeating yourself. You stop explaining the same pain in different ways. You stop raising your voice to be heard. You're nervous. System relaxes because you no longer feel like you are fighting to be understood. And he feels that shift too. He realizes that listening is not losing power. It is gaining connection. That understanding you does not weaken him. It strengthens the bond. So he listens when it's uncomfortable. He listens when it challenges his ego. He listens when the truth isn't flattering. Because deep down, he senses something. That the more he truly hears you, the more clearly he understands what is at stake. And once someone truly hears you, they begin to feel you. And feeling leads to something even deeper. 5. He becomes emotionally present instead of avoidant. Emotional presence is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up quietly, through availability. When a man becomes afraid to lose you, he stops running from emotional moments. Before, he may have avoided heavy conversations, changed the subject when feelings arose, distracted himself when things became real, not because he didn't care, but because caring felt overwhelming. Avoidance is often fear wearing armor, but when he realizes that distance might cost him you, the armor begins to crack. He stays. He doesn't disappear when emotions rise. He doesn't shut down when vulnerability enters the room. He doesn't numb himself to escape discomfort. Instead, he remains, even when he doesn't have the right words, even when he feels unsure, even when he feels exposed. This is emotional presence. Not fixing, not rescuing, just being there. You notice it in the way he doesn't rush you anymore, in the way he allows tears without discomfort, in the way he doesn't minimize what you feel. And this changes the energy between you. You no longer feel alone in the connection. You no longer feel like you are carrying the emotional weight by yourself, because he has stepped into the space with you. And that, shared honestly, creates intimacy. Not the dramatic kind, the steady kind, the kind that feels safe. He learns that emotions are not threats, they are bridges, that vulnerability does not weaken a bond, it deepens it. So he stops avoiding the uncomfortable. He stops escaping into silence. He stops pretending everything is fine when it isn't, because he understands now that presence is what keeps love alive. And once someone becomes emotionally present, they can no longer hide behind games. Something else begins to fall away. 6. He stops playing power games. Power games are loud on the surface, but empty underneath. Who texts first? Who waits longer? Who cares less? These games exist only where insecurity lives. And when a man is afraid to lose you, he loses interest in winning. He no longer withholds affection to feel in control. He no longer delays responses to seem important. He no longer creates distance to feel desired, because he understands something crucial. Love is not a competition, it is a cooperation. So the games end, not with an announcement, but with maturity. He reaches out when he misses you. He speaks honestly instead of strategically. He shows care without calculating the outcome. And you feel it immediately. The tension disappears The guessing stops. The emotional tug-of-war ends. You no longer feel tested. You no longer feel measured. You no longer feel like affection is being rationed. Instead, there is clarity, and clarity brings peace. He realizes that true power is not in controlling the connection, but in nurturing it. That dominance creates fear, but sincerity creates trust. So he chooses sincerity. He lets go of the need to appear unaffected. He releases the urge to prove strength through silence. He abandons the idea that distance equals value, because he sees now that your calm detachment is not a thria. It is a boundary. And boundaries reveal truth. They show who is ready to meet you where you stand, and who only wanted the chase. He steps forward, not dramatically, not desperately, but honestly. And in doing so, he reveals something important, that he is no longer afraid of losing control. He's afraid of losing you. And once the games stop, something real finally begins. Because love does not grow where strategy lives. It grows where truth stands unguarded. And when someone chooses truth over tactics, you realize something powerful. You are never meant to be won. You are meant to be met. 7. He respects your boundaries without resentment. There is a quiet strength in boundaries that many people misunderstand. They think boundaries are walls. They think boundaries push love away. But boundaries are not rejection. They are clarity. When a man is afraid to lose you, he begins to understand this. Before, your boundaries may have felt inconvenient to him. Your no felt like resistance. Your limits felt like obstacles. But something shifts when he realizes you are no longer negotiating your peace. He notices that you do not explain yourself endlessly anymore. You do not argue your standards into existence. You simply live by them. And instead of pushing back, he pauses. Respect replaces resistance. He stops testing how much you will tolerate. He stops crossing lines to see if you will stay. He stops taking your forgiveness for granted. Not because he fears punishment, but because he fears losing access to your presence. This is where resentment disappears. Because resentment comes from entitlement, and entitlement fades when appreciation appears. He realizes that your boundaries are not threats. They are invitations. Invitations to rise, to meet you where you stand, to love you without trying to own you. So he adjusts, not angrily, not reluctantly, but willingly. He no longer sighs when you say no. He no longer withdraws when you hold firm. He no longer treats your self-respect as rejection. Instead, he honors it. And something beautiful happens when boundaries are respected. Trust deepens. You stop bracing yourself. You stop guarding every word. You stop preparing for backlash. Because your limits are no longer being challenged. They are being understood. And in that understanding, safety grows. But safety does not just come from respect alone. It grows stronger when effort becomes sincere. When giving is no longer calculated. 8. He invests time without keeping score. Time is the one thing we never get back. So when someone gives you their time freely, they are giving you something precious. When a man is afraid to lose you, his relationship with time changes. Before, his effort may have come with conditions. He did things expecting something in return. Attention became transactional. But now, the scorekeeping stops. He shows up without reminding you what he's done. He gives without silently waiting to be repaid. He invests without measuring who gave more. Because love measured becomes heavy, and love freely given becomes light. You feel the difference immediately. There's no guilt attached to his kindness, no emotional invoice waiting to be paid. No unspoken, I did this, so you owe me that. Instead, there is generosity. He spends time with you because he wants to, not because he's trying to secure something. He listens because he cares, not because he expects praise. He supports because your growth matters, not because he wants control. This kind of investment creates ease. you no longer feel like you are being weighed. You no longer feel like affection must be earned daily. You no longer feel pressure to perform gratitude perfectly, because love is no longer a ledger, it is a flow. And when effort flows freely, it reveals sincerity. He understands now that real connection cannot be budgeted, that love cannot be reduced to fairness charts, that keeping score slowly kills intimacy. So he lets go. He gives his time, his presence, his energy, not to prove anything, but to build something. And this builds trust, because you know that what he offers comes from choice, not obligation. And when someone chooses you without calculation, you begin to relax into who you truly are. But time and effort alone are not enough, because true connection deepens when someone begins to see beyond your surface, when curiosity replaces assumption. 9. He becomes curious about your inner world. Curiosity is a form of reverence. It says, I do not already know you. I am willing to discover you. I respect the depth within you. When a man is afraid to lose you, he stops assuming and starts asking. He no longer listens just to reply. He listens to understand. He asks about your thoughts, not just your day, your fears, not just your plans, your dreams, not just your routines. And these questions are not interrogations, they are invitations. He wants to know how your mind works, what makes you feel safe, what makes you pull away. He notices patterns, he remembers details, he connects moments, because he understands something powerful now, that your outer presence is only the doorway. Your inner world is the home, and he wants to step inside gently. You feel this shift deeply. You feel less like a role and more like a person, less like an expectation and more like a mystery he respects. He doesn't rush to fix your feelings. He doesn't minimize your experiences. He doesn't explain you away. He holds space. And holding space is one of the greatest forms of love, because it says, you do not need to change for me to stay. You do not need to simplify yourself to be understood. You are allowed to be complex. This curiosity creates intimacy without pressure. You open naturally. You speak freely. You share without fear of being dismissed, because you sense that he is not trying to control your inner world. He is trying to understand it. And understanding creates connection. Connection creates attachment. Attachment creates care. But this care is different. It is not desperate. It is not possessive. It is attentive. And attentiveness is the opposite of neglect. He realizes that losing you would not just mean losing a relationship. It would mean losing access to a soul he has come to know. And once someone truly knows you, they stop taking you lightly. They stop risking you casually. They stop assuming you will always be there, because curiosity awakens appreciation. And appreciation leads to something even deeper, something that changes the way a man shows up entirely. Because when someone truly sees you, they begin to value you in ways that cannot be undone. 10. He takes responsibility for his mistakes. There is a moment in every relationship when truth knocks softly, not to accuse, not to shame, but to ask one simple question. Can you see yourself clearly? When a man is afraid to lose you, he no longer hides from that question. Before, mistakes may have come wrapped in excuses, explanations spoken quickly, blame redirected gently then firmly, not because he was cruel, but because admitting fault felt like weakness. Yet something changes when the possibility of losing you becomes real. He stops defending the image of who he thinks he is and begins facing the reality of who he has been. Responsibility appears quietly. He says, I was wrong, not halfway, not followed by a justification, just truth. And truth has weight. You feel it when he doesn't rush to correct or react you on. When he doesn't explain away your hurt. When he doesn't say, that's not what I meant, but instead asks, how did that affect you? Taking responsibility is not dramatic. It doesn't demand applause, it is humble. He acknowledges the impact of his actions, even when his intention was different, because he understands something now. Intent does not erase consequence. This awareness marks maturity. He realizes that growth does not come from being right, it comes from being honest. So he stops protecting his ego and starts protecting the connection. He repairs instead of resisting. He listens instead of arguing. He learns instead of repeating. And in this space, healing begins, because accountability builds trust faster than perfection ever could. You don't need him to be flawless. You need him to be real. And when he takes responsibility without being pushed, you feel safe again. Safe enough to soften, safe enough to stay. But responsibility alone is only the beginning, because once a man learns to own his mistakes, he becomes sensitive to something even deeper. 11. He fears disappointing you more than losing control. There is a shift that happens quietly, almost invisibly, before he may have feared losing authority, feared appearing weak, feared giving up control. But when he is afraid to lose you, his priorities rearrange themselves. He becomes more concerned with how his actions affect your heart than how they protect his pride. Disappointment begins to matter, not as a threat, but as a mirror. He pays attention to your reactions, not to manipulate them, but to understand them. He notices when your energy changes, when your smile fades faster than before, when silence enters where warmth once lived, and instead of asserting dominance, he pauses, because he realizes something profound, that disappointment from you carries meaning. It signals distance. It signals erosion. It signals that something sacred is at risk. So he chooses care over control. He speaks with more thought. He acts with more awareness. He considers consequences he once ignored, not because you demand perfection, but because he values your peace. This is not fear rooted in insecurity. It is fear rooted in respect. He understands now that authority does not hold love. Attunement does. So he listens before reacting. He checks himself before insisting. He softens where he once hardened, and you feel it. You feel less pushed, less managed, less dominated. Because love is no longer about winning, it is about preserving what matters. He understands that control may create obedience, but it destroys connection. So he releases the need to always lead and embraces the ability to walk beside you. And this choice transforms him. Because when someone fears disappointing you more than losing power, they are no longer protecting their image. They are protecting the bond. And bonds protected with care grow stronger. But care deepens further when effort continues even when convenience disappears. 12. He shows effort even when it's inconvenient. Convenience reveals little. Anyone can show up when it's easy. Anyone can be kind when nothing is required. But inconvenience, that is where truth speaks. When a man is afraid to lose you, his effort does not vanish when life becomes demanding. He does not disappear when tired. He does not retreat when busy. He does not postpone connection indefinitely. He adapts. He makes time where none seems available. He adjusts priorities without resentment. He remains present even when it costs him comfort. This effort is quiet. It doesn't ask for recognition. It doesn't announce sacrifice. It simply shows up. You feel it when he calls, even though the day was long. When he listens, even though he's overwhelmed. When he follows through, even though it would be easier not to. This is devotion in its purest form. Not dramatic gestures, but steady presence. He understands that love maintained only in convenience is not love at all. So he chooses you in small, consistent ways. He doesn't use stress as an excuse. He doesn't use fatigue as a shield. He doesn't use distance as avoidance. Because he knows something now, that neglect does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through absence. So he stays. Even when it requires effort, even when it requires patience, even when it requires him to grow. And this kind of effort changes the foundation of the relationship. You no longer wonder where you stand. You no longer question your importance. You no longer feel like an option, because he has made a choice. Not once, but repeatedly. And repeated choice is commitment. This is the moment when love stops being conditional and starts becoming intentional. And when someone chooses you intentionally, you realize something powerful. You were never asking for too much. You were waiting for someone who understood the value of showing up, even when it was not easy. And once someone learns to do that, they are no longer afraid of effort. They are afraid of losing what effort has built. And that fear changes everything. 13. He becomes more honest, not more defensive. There is a quiet moment when honesty stops being risky and starts being necessary. Before that moment, truth often came with armor. Words were chosen carefully. Stories were adjusted slightly. Silence was used to avoid discomfort, not always out of malice, but out of fear. Fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing control. But when a man is afraid to lose you, defensiveness begins to feel dangerous, because defensiveness creates distance, and distance now feels like loss. So he lowers his guard, not all at once, not perfectly, but intentionally. He begins to speak truth without preparing excuses in advance. He shares his thoughts without wrapping them in protection. He admits confusion instead of pretending certainty. You notice it in the way his tone softens, in the way explanations become simpler, in the way silence no longer feels like avoidance. Honesty starts to breathe. He no longer reacts immediately when challenged. He pauses, he reflects. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," he asks, "Help me understand." This is not weakness, this is courage. Because honesty requires vulnerability, and vulnerability risks exposure. But he understands something now, that half-truths may keep peace temporarily, but they destroy trust slowly. So he chooses truth, even when it makes him uncomfortable, even when it reveals flaws, even when it requires accountability. And something powerful happens in this space. You stop guessing, you stop reading between lines, you stop filling in blanks with anxiety. Because clarity replaces confusion. Honesty creates grounding. You feel steadier, calmer, more secure, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is real. He learns that honesty does not push you away. It pulls you closer. That transparency does not weaken the bond. It strengthens it. So defensiveness fades. He no longer sees your questions as attacks. He no longer treats feedback as rejection. He no longer hears concern as criticism. He understands that honesty is not about being right. It is about being aligned. And alignment creates peace. But peace reveals something deeper still. Because when honesty is present, comparison loses its grip, and something else quietly dissolves. 14. He stops competing with you and starts supporting you. Competition has a subtle sound. It hides beneath jokes. It disguises itself as advice. It pretends to be encouragement. But you can feel it. You feel it when your success is met with silence, when your growth feels threatening, when your confidence creates tension. Competition does not celebrate, it measures. And when a man is afraid to lose you, he stops measuring himself against you, because he realizes that love is not a hierarchy. There is no winner in partnership, no rank, no scoreboard. So rivalry fades. He begins to see your strength, not as a challenge, but as a gift. Your ambition no longer intimidates him. Your independence no longer unsettles him. Your voice no longer competes with his. Instead, he listens with pride. He supports your growth without shrinking himself. He encourages your dreams without feeling diminished. He stands beside you, not above you. This is a deep shift, because support requires security. It means he is no longer threatened by your light. He no longer needs to dim you to feel bright. He no longer needs to lead every moment to feel valuable. He understands now that love grows faster when both people rise. So he becomes your ally. He asks how he can help. He celebrates your wins genuinely. He protects your confidence instead of testing it. And you feel it. You feel safe expanding, safe dreaming, safe becoming more, because the person beside you is no longer competing. They are contributing. This changes the dynamic completely. The relationship stops being a power struggle and becomes a shared journey. You no longer guard your success. You no longer downplay your joy. You no longer make yourself smaller to keep peace, because peace is no longer threatened by your growth. He realizes that losing you would not just mean losing love. It would mean losing a partner who made him better. And that realization humbles him. So he supports instead of compares. He UPL. Ifts instead of undermines. He stands firm instead of standing in the way. And in that space, something sacred forms. Not dependency, not control, but partnership. Two people walking forward, not pulling against each other. And once someone learns to support your becoming, they are no longer afraid of your strength. They are afraid of life without it. And that fear, the fear of losing a connection built on honesty and support, changes how deeply someone commits, because love that is honest and supportive does not cling. It chooses. And when someone chooses you without competition, you finally feel free to be exactly who you are meant to be. 15. He values peace over ego. There comes a quiet turning point in a man's inner world, when winning no longer feels as important as harmony. Before that moment, ego often speaks first. It insists on being right. It demands recognition. It protects pride even when the cost is connection. Ego argues. Ego interrupts. Ego refuses to soften. But when a man is afraid to lose you, he begins to see what ego has been costing him. He notices how small disagreements grow into distance, how stubbornness creates silence, how the need to dominate slowly erodes closeness, and something inside him loosens. He no longer needs to prove himself in every moment. He no longer needs the final word. He no longer needs to be the strongest voice in the room. Instead, he seeks calm. Not the kind of calm that comes from avoidance, but the kind that comes from understanding. He learns that peace is not weakness. Peace is mastery. It takes strength to pause instead of react. It takes courage to listen instead of defend. It takes wisdom to choose harmony over victory. So he begins to soften his tone. He allows space for disagreement without turning it into war. He chooses dialogue over dominance. And you feel it immediately. Arguments no longer feel like battles. Discussions no longer feel unsafe. Your opinions no longer feel threatening to him, because he has learned something essential, that love cannot thrive in constant tension. He understands now that ego wants control, but peace wants connection. So when conflict arises, he breathes instead of exploding. He reflects instead of retaliating. He seeks resolution instead of validation. This changes the emotional atmosphere between you. Your body relaxes, your heart opens, your voice becomes steady, because you no longer feel like you must protect yourself. He realizes that protecting his ego costs him closeness, but protecting peace brings intimacy. So he lets go of small battles. He stops keeping mental tallies. He releases the need to always be right, not because he has no opinions, but because he values the relationship more than his pride. And this choice transforms him. Because a man who values peace over ego is no longer ruled by impulse. He is guided by intention, and intention builds safety. But peace alone is not enough, because once ego quiets down, something deeper begins to emerge, a vision that stretches beyond the present moment. 16. He includes you in his future without pressure. When ego fades, time expands. A man who values peace begins to think differently about tomorrow. Before, the future may have been avoided, plans felt heavy, commitment felt confining, the future was spoken about vaguely or not at all. But when a man is afraid to lose you, the future stops feeling like a threat. It becomes a place of possibility, and he begins to include you there, not with force, not with urgency, but with calm certainty. He doesn't rush you with promises. He doesn't pressure you with timelines. He doesn't bind you with expectations. Instead, he speaks naturally. We could do this someday. I see you there with me. I'd like you to be part of that. These words are not performances. They are reflections. Reflections of a mind that has already made space for you. You feel the difference. There is no anxiety in his voice, no fear behind the commitment, no tension in the invitation. Because he is not trying to lock you in, he is opening a door. And doors feel different than cages. You don't feel rushed. You don't feel cornered. You don't feel obligated. You feel considered. He includes you in his future because it feels right. Not because he is afraid of being alone. He imagines shared experiences, not ownership. Growth together, not control. Partnership, not dependency. And this makes you trust him more. Because pressure creates resistance, but patience creates safety. He understands now that love does not need to hurry. It needs to be steady. So he allows things to unfold naturally. He builds with intention, not anxiety. He plans with clarity, not desperation. He commits with peace, not fear. And in doing so, he shows you something powerful, that he is not including you in his future to fill a void, but to share a life. This is why his words feel grounded, why his presence feels secure, why his vision feels real. Because he is not using the future as leverage, he is offering it as a possibility. And you sense that if you say yes, it will be because you want to, not because you were pushed. This kind of inclusion feels gentle, respectful, honest. It says, I see you here, I value you there, but I trust you to choose. And choice is the purest form of commitment. Because love that is chosen freely is love that lasts. And when a man values peace over ego and includes you in his future without pressure, he reveals the deepest truth of all, that he is no longer afraid of commitment. He is afraid of a future that does not include you. And that quiet fear does not make him cling. It makes him show up calmly, consistently, whole. And in that space, love stops being a question. It becomes a direction. 17. He treats you with gentle seriousness. There is a way someone touches a fragile object when they know its value, not nervously, not possessively, but with care. That is what gentle seriousness feels like. When a man is afraid to lose you, his energy around you changes, not louder, not more dramatic, quieter, deeper. He no longer treats the connection casually, no more half attention, no more careless words thrown into the air without thought. His presence becomes intentional. He listens with focus. He speaks with care. He moves with awareness, because he understands something now, that you are not something to play with. Gentle seriousness is not heaviness. It is not pressure. It is not intensity. It is respect that breathes. He still laughs with you, still enjoys light moments, still feels joy, but underneath that joy is grounding. He doesn't mock what matters to you. He doesn't dismiss your feelings as too much. He doesn't brush off moments that are important to your heart, because he sees the depth beneath your softness. And this is where many people misunderstand seriousness. They think seriousness kills romance. But careless love kills far more. Gentle seriousness says, I am here. I am present. I am aware that what we share matters. You feel it when he follows through, when he remembers details, when he handles conflict with care instead of sharpness. You feel safe being real. You don't feel like you have to entertain him to keep his attention. You don't feel like you have to perform happiness to be loved. You don't feel like you have to hide your depth to be accepted. Because he respects your emotional landscape. He understands that trust is not built through intensity, it is built through consistency. So he doesn't rush intimacy. He doesn't force closeness. He allows things to unfold naturally. This is gentle seriousness. It's the energy of someone who knows that rushing ruins what patience can grow. He understands that love is not a game of speed. It is a practice of presence, and presence requires care. So he becomes careful with promises, careful with words, careful with your heart, not because he is afraid of commitment, but because he understands commitment's weight, and this weight does not burden him. It steadies him. You feel anchored around him, centered, seen, because gentle seriousness says, I am not here to pass time with you. I am here to build something meaningful, but meaning alone is not enough, because seriousness must be matched with choice, not once, but repeatedly. And this is where the deepest truth reveals itself. 18. He chooses you daily without needing fear to motivate him. There is a difference between staying and choosing. Staying can come from habit, from comfort, from fear of starting over. But choosing is alive. When a man is afraid to lose you, he does not cling. He chooses, and not in dramatic declarations, not in grand speeches, in small moments. He chooses you when no one is watching, when life is ordinary, when excitement fades and routine appears. He chooses you on quiet days, on difficult days, on days when effort is required. This choice is not driven by fear of punishment, not driven by guilt, not driven by pressure. It is driven by clarity. He knows who you are to him. So he chooses presence over distraction, honesty over convenience, connection over ego. And this choice happens daily. Not because he is afraid you will leave, but because he understands what leaving would cost. This is important. Fear-based love panics. It clings. He controls. But chosen love stands calmly. It does not need to monitor. It does not need to test. It does not need to demand reassurance. It simply shows up. You feel this choice in his consistency, in his tone, in his actions. You don't feel like you're being kept. You feel like you're being valued. There is no anxiety in his commitment, no urgency to lock things down, no pressure to prove yourself. Because he is not choosing you to fill a void. He is choosing you because life feels more honest with you in it. And that honesty creates freedom. You don't feel trapped. You don't feel obligated. You don't feel afraid to be yourself. Because choice invites authenticity. He allows you to grow, to change, to evolve. Because his commitment is not to a version of you. It is to your becoming. And this is where love becomes powerful. When someone chooses you daily, you stop questioning your worth. You stop shrinking. You stop negotiating your needs. Because love is no longer uncertain. And here is the quiet truth. A man who chooses you daily is not afraid of losing you because he controls you. He is aware of losing you because he respects you. And respect creates care. Care creates consistency. Consistency creates trust. This is the kind of love that doesn't need fear to survive. It survives on intention, on presence, on choice. And once you experience love that chooses you calmly, you realize something profound. You were never asking for too much. You were waiting for someone who understood that love is not something you fall into once. It is something you step into every single day. And when someone does that, without fear, without pressure, without force, love stops being uncertain. It becomes steady. And steadiness is the deepest form of devotion. Here is the quiet truth. Most people never understand. A man does not become afraid to lose you because you demand more. He becomes afraid to lose you because you need less validation, less chasing, less proving. You walk away from chaos not in anger, but in silence. And in that silence, something powerful happens. He realizes that love is not owned, it is chosen. And when someone chooses you because you are whole, not because you are afraid, that is not attachment, that is respect. So remain steady, remain centered, remain rooted in yourself. Because the one who fears losing you is not responding to your absence. He is responding to your presence. And that presence is unshakable.